Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name's Keely Merriam. As you can probably tell by the title of this video, I'm sharing my summer TBR. I know it is a little bit late, summer has already started. However, I was a little bit on the fence about sharing this, but I decided I just want to share it anyways. I have only a small number of physical books that I'm going to be sharing. I have like 3, and then the rest I'm either going to be borrowing from the library or getting out of public domain because they are classics. So with that, I'm just going to begin sharing the physical books first and then move on to the non-physical books. First up is Salt Houses. This is a book about a Palestinian family, and I believe it spans multiple generations, and it's more like short stories from what I can tell. I really love books that are very lyrical and poetic, and from what I've read from excerpts of this book, this one is very poetic. And I believe the author is actually a poet as well. I know the cover of this might not be the prettiest, but there are prettier covers available. I believe it's just the hardback version of it. Next is The Poppy War, and I don't really feel like I have to say much about this book because it is so popular. This is the first in the trilogy. The Poppy War is a fantasy and it has a lot of dark themes from what I'm told. I've heard that it follows the Second Sino-Japanese War, which I don't really have much knowledge about. It would be interesting to learn a little bit about that. I don't really feel like I have too much more to say about this because it is so well known and well loved. Then I had to include some horror because I know at least some point during the summer I'm going to be in a horror mood. That always happens to me for some reason. During the summer I always get into a horror mood. I know most people tend to associate autumn with horror, but for me, summer is just the perfect time to read horror. As most of you are probably aware, The Exorcist is classic horror. It follows a possession story. I've watched the movie before, but I've never read the book. This one actually has great reviews, and I know personally the only horror that really affects me is possession stories. Slasher stories and things like that don't really affect me as much, but if it's a possession story, that really scares me. So I have high expectations for this book. I hope that I end up being just a little bit scared. So that's all I have for the physical books. Next, I'm moving on to the non-physical books. And so first up is another horror, which is The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. This book has been widely popular. There haven't been too many good reviews on it though. Most of the reviews that I've seen have been very negative, but I still want to give it a shot. To me personally, the concept of it is just so fascinating. It follows this common trope in horror, which is the final girl trope, and if you don't know, it's basically just that in horror there's usually this one final girl left at the very end, and so it follows all of these final girls, and they basically have like their own little support group, and then I believe the villain or whoever was after them comes back. I'm not really sure how that goes, but basically they're dealing with it again. That concept to me is just very fascinating. Regardless of the reviews, I think I want to just give it a good shot. I don't want to really focus too much on the negative reviews. I'm not going to go in with the expectation that it's going to be bad. I think I just want to read it and make up my own mind about it. I also really want to try reading more classics. I don't usually read a whole lot. Normally I read maybe like 1 or 2 every year, but there are a few more that I would like to give a chance this summer. One being anything by Virginia Woolf. I've read quotes from her. They just seem really beautiful, so I really want to give that a shot. And I know Virginia Woolf is a very loved author. And I also want to try Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. Basically, it follows this man who wakes up one day as a bug, and basically the only thing on his mind is that he has to get to work, whereas everybody else in his life is telling him that really he can't. This is a very serious issue, but he's still just so determined to get to work. I've heard that it is very philosophical, and it just sounds so bizarre and so interesting and like something that I would really be interested in. And the last classic I want to read is actually an Arabic classic. It's called The Broken Wings by Khalil Gibran. The author was a Lebanese man, and he was well known for talking about love in a very beautiful and poetic way. I don't really know too much about the book. I read maybe like the first chapter of it, and it is a little bit, I would say, kind of convoluted, and I don't know if that's because of how poetic it is or if it's because it's a translation from Arabic to English, because I know oftentimes a lot of translations can't really capture the language properly and it can kind of sound jumbled, but I would like to give it another try. Maybe I just have to be in the right mood or the right headspace to read it. Another author that I would like to give a chance is Joan Didion. I don't really have a specific book in mind, but I just want to try out anything by Joan Didion. I tried reading some Eve Babbitt's, who I know is often compared to Joan Didion, and personally for me, Eve Babbitt's just didn't work out. Both authors are kind of discussed as being these 60s, 70s authors who were kind of like it girls in Hollywood, and that just sounded really interesting to me when I read Eve Babbitt's, but for me personally it just fell a little flat. It didn't really feel like much happened in the story, so I would like to try out Joan Didion, and maybe I'll have some better luck with that. So these are all the books that I hope to get to within the next couple of months. This isn't a very structured or rigid TBR because I'm not very good at keeping up with TBRs, so if I get to them, I get to them. If not, that's fine. I'm not going to put too much pressure on myself to read all of these over the summer. Just if I'm in the mood to read something, then I'll read it. If not, maybe I'll read it in the future sometime. Thank you all for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe.